A brass-railed salad bar with a curved sneeze guard rolled into a beefsteak Charlie's in suburban New Jersey on a Thursday night in 1984. For 8 years, it carried bowls of peel-and-eat shrimp, ladles of bacon bits, and tubs of dressing that families refilled 3 times for the price of one entree. That single fixture defined how Americans ate out for an entire decade. Number 22 on this list cost $4.99 and came with unlimited sangria. Number 15 was the appetizer every table ordered before anyone looked at a menu. Number 4 on this list arrived sizzling on a cast-iron platter that the busboy was warned never to touch. These were the meals an entire country ate on Friday paychecks and birthday Saturdays. Liability lawsuits, lobby pressure from the Beef Council, and a generation of menu auditors quietly pulled every one of them off the line. Hit subscribe and pull up to the counter with us. Here are 25 forgotten 1980s meals restaurants refuse to serve now. Number 25. Howard Johnson's fried clam strips. Walk into any orange-roofed Howard Johnson's in 1981, and the clam strip platter was the dish that filled the booth before the menu was open. The recipe had been refined by Jacques Pepin, who turned down a chef job at the Kennedy White House to develop it, and the chain ran the strips through buttermilk before a corn-flour dredge that fried up the color of a baseball mitt. By 1984, the formula was already gone. The Johnson heirs had sold the chain in 1979 to a British company that switched the clam supplier to a cheaper cut, and Marriott bought the non-franchise locations soon after and began dismantling the orange roofs. The strips that came out of the kitchen after that point used a different breading and a softer clam, and regulars at the rest stop locations along the Mass Pike could taste it on the first bite. The original recipe was never put back on a corporate menu. Marriott considered it a liability of the old brand and walked away from every fryer that knew how to make it. Number 24. Sambo's Papa Jumbo Breakfast. The Papa Jumbo special was juice, eggs, bacon or sausage, and 6 full-size pancakes on a single oval plate for under $3, and Sambo's served it in 1,117 locations across 47 states at the peak in 1979. Truck drivers stopped for it before sunrise. Families on cross-country station wagon trips ordered it because the kids ate free. The plate disappeared because the brand around it became impossible to defend. The walls of every Sambo's were decorated with illustrations from the Little Black Sambo storybook. The name carried a slur connotation the founders refused to retire, and by 1981 the lawsuits and protests had piled high enough that Sambo's filed Chapter 11 and shuttered 450 locations in one wave. By 1982, every store except the original Santa Barbara location was closed. The Papa Jumbo recipe was never licensed out. No surviving chain would touch a menu item that traced back to that name, and the 6 pancake plate vanished with the orange and brown signs. Number 23. Burger King Veal Parmigiana. Burger King put a veal patty on a seeded sub-roll with tomato sauce and mozzarella in 1980 and rolled it out nationally inside the Aren't You Hungry campaign that a young copywriter named James Patterson helped shape at J. Walter Thompson before he started selling thrillers. For about 18 months, it sat on the menu next to the Whopper. Then the boycott started. PETA and the American Vegetarians organized a coalition of 70 groups that picketed Burger King parking lots over the veal crate sourcing, and sales of the sandwich dropped by as much as 85% inside a single quarter. By 1983, the veal Parmigiana was pulled from all but a handful of test markets, and corporate framed the move as a marketing decision rather than a concession to the protests. A Washington Post source said the truth was simpler. The sandwich was not very good. Burger King has never put veal back on the menu, and the chain quietly distances itself from the period whenever fast food historians bring it up. Number 22. Beefsteak Charlie's Unlimited Shrimp and Sangria. Walk past the brass rail salad bar with the curved sneeze guard at any Beefsteak Charlie's in 1984, and the bowls in the center of the line held pre-peeled shrimp in cracked ice, refilled every 20 minutes by a busboy with a stainless scoop. The entree came with bottomless beer, wine, or sangria poured by the carafe at the table for $4.99. Beefsteak Chuck, the slogan kid in the early 20th century vest, promised on television that the chain would feed you like there was no tomorrow. By 1984, the chain had 60 locations, mostly East Coast. By 1987, the corporate parent had renamed itself Lifestyle Restaurants, lost $20 million, and sold the chain to Bombay Palace for $8.4 million in stock. The unlimited alcohol model that built the menu became the liability that closed it. Insurance rates climbed, drunk driving statutes tightened across New Jersey and New York, and no chain that opened after 1990 would attach a free pour carafe to a $4.99 dinner. Number 21. Pizza Hut Priazzo. The Priazzo arrived in the summer of 1985 with a $15 million ad campaign filmed in Italy and scored to Puccini opera. It was a deep dish pie stuffed with 2 layers of fillings under a sealed top crust of dough, sauce, and cheese, sold in 4 variations named after Italian cities. The Roma carried sausage and pepperoni. The Florentine ran on ham. The Milano stacked 5 different meats. The Napoli was the lone vegetarian. Charles Brymer, the marketing consultant who had also named the Pontiac Fiero, coined the word Priazzo from scratch because no actual Italian dish existed by that name. Pizza Hut made $350 million on it in the first year. Then, the math caught up. The bake time ran 40 minutes per pie, the prep required a specialized oven setup, and the labor cost of stuffing each crust by hand cut margins to a sliver. By 1991, the Priazzo was off the menu, and Pizza Hut has refused to bring it back even for limited-run promotions because the kitchens cannot move them out fast enough during a dinner rush. Number 20. Victoria Station Prime Rib in a Boxcar. Victoria Station served you a slab of slow-roasted prime rib inside an actual converted railway boxcar with a vintage caboose parked out front. The chain peaked at 100 locations across the United States in the late 1970s, and the limited menu kept the kitchen focused on 3 things: thick-cut prime rib, charcoal-broiled steaks, and a shrimp scampi variant they called Shrimp Victoria. The boxcars were the marketing. The food was the reason families drove past closer steakhouses to get there. By 1986, the chain filed Chapter 11. Themed restaurants were losing steam, and the heavy meat and potatoes formula sat badly against the lighter eating shift of the mid-80s. The last surviving location, a holdout in Salem, Massachusetts, kept the lights on until December 2017 and then closed without notice. Nobody runs a restaurant out of a boxcar anymore because the fire codes will not allow it, and the railway artifacts that decorated the walls were auctioned off to collectors who put them in basements. By the way, real quick before we keep going, if the chains in this countdown brought back any kitchen memories, the recipe guide linked in the description has the home versions of the steakhouse marinades, the salad bar dressings, and the fried clam batter that the chains will never put on a menu again. Worth a look if you cook the way these places used to cook. Now back to the list. Number 19. Steak and Ale Kensington Club. The Kensington Club was a marinated top sirloin grilled medium rare and served on a wooden plank with honey wheat bread baked in-house at every location. Steak and Ale reached 280 restaurants in the late 1980s, and the chain trained an entire generation of casual dining managers, including Norman Brinker, who later launched Chili's. The dinner included an unlimited salad bar with crocks of soup at the end of the line, and refills on the honey wheat were the unwritten rule of the table. The whole operation went down in a single afternoon. On July 29, 2008, the parent company, S&A Restaurant Corp., filed Chapter 7 and closed the remaining 58 Steak and Ale locations along with its sister chain Bennigan's on the same day. Employees walked in for the dinner shift and found locked doors. The Kensington Club has been partially revived through limited Bennigan's menus, but the original recipe with the in-house wheat bread on the side has never been served at scale since. Number 18. Bonanza All-You-Can-Eat Sirloin Buffet. Bonanza ran the sirloin tip dinner with the full buffet line for under $6 at the peak of the 1980s, and the chain had nearly 600 locations operating beside sister chain Ponderosa's 700. You ordered the steak at the counter, picked up a tray, and walked the buffet for soup, salad, pasta, baked potato bar, and a dessert station with soft serve. The whole meal cost less than a movie ticket. Corporate raider Asher Edelman bought a controlling stake in Ponderosa during the late 80s and cut costs across the operation. Smaller steak portions, cheaper buffet items, fewer staff. The decline was immediate. Rising beef prices in the early 90s hit a kitchen already running on thin meat margins, and the buffet model that had defined family dining started to feel cheap rather than generous. The all-you-can-eat sirloin formula at that price will never return, because no chain can buy beef for the spread it required, and the few remaining Bonanza locations now operate on a scaled-back menu without the original buffet line. Number 17. Chi-Chi's Chimichanga with fried ice cream. The Chi-Chi's Chimichanga arrived at the table on a hot oval platter that smelled of frying oil and cumin from 6 feet away, and the server set it down with a small warning about the rim of the plate. The shell was a flour tortilla rolled around shredded beef or chicken and dropped into the fryer until the outside cracked at the edges, then layered with sour cream, cold guacamole, and a ladle of red sauce that bled into the rice. The fried ice cream came after on a separate plate. A soft ball of vanilla rolled in cornflakes and cinnamon sugar, flash-fried just long enough to crisp the coating without melting the center, finished with whipped cream and honey that pooled around the base in a slow amber ring. The kitchen plated it under a heat lamp, so the contrast between the warm crust and the cold core stayed sharp from the pass to the table, and the first spoonful broke through the shell with a sound that carried across the booth. For most of the 1980s, Chi-Chi's was the chain that introduced Tex-Mex to people who lived nowhere near a border, and the chimichanga and fried ice cream combination was the order that defined the experience for first-timers and regulars alike. Then, 2003 happened. Chi-Chi's filed Chapter 11 in October. In November, green onions traced to the Beaver Valley Mall location in Pennsylvania triggered the largest hepatitis A outbreak in American history, sickening 660 people and killing 4. By September 2004, every one of the remaining 65 locations was closed. Outback Steakhouse bought what was left and either rebranded or sold the buildings. No major chain has touched the brand for 2 decades because the legal exposure attached to the name is still untouchable. The chimichanga survives at independent Tex-Mex restaurants, but the version that came under the heat lamp with the warm crust fried ice cream on the side has not been on a chain menu since the fall of 2003. Number 16. Arthur Treacher's Fish and Chips. Arthur Treacher's served fish and chips wrapped in paper inside red plastic baskets at over 800 locations at its late 1970s peak, and the cod fillet was the entire point. The chain sourced North Atlantic cod and dredged it in a beer batter formula tied to the British fish and chips tradition Treacher endorsed in person, frying it to a flaky white interior under a shell that crunched audibly across the dining room. Then the cod wars between Iceland and Britain doubled the wholesale price of the fillet between 1975 and 1976. Mrs. Paul's, which supplied the chain's seafood, switched the recipe over to pollock without telling regulars, and the flavor profile that had built the brand changed inside one season. Customers noticed within weeks. By the late 1980s, Arthur Treacher's was closing locations quietly across the Northeast and Midwest, while McDonald's and Wendy's expanded into the same parking lots. The cod version of the fish basket is gone for good because no surviving chain can build a supply chain around Icelandic cod at a fast food price point, and the 3 locations still operating in Ohio use a different fish entirely. Number 15. TGI Fridays Original Potato Skins. TGI Fridays put potato skins on a casual dining menu in 1974, and the appetizer was the dish that every table ordered before anyone opened a dinner menu. The kitchen baked russets whole, scooped out the inside, brushed the shells with butter, and crisped them in the fryer before topping each one with cheddar, bacon, scallions, and a side cup of sour cream. By 1985, the appetizer had been copied by Bennigan's, Houlihan's, and Ruby Tuesday, and the Fridays version was already being scaled back. The kitchen had moved to frozen pre-scooped skins from a commissary supplier. The bacon went from real to bits, and the shell that came out of the fryer no longer crackled the same way. The original 1974 recipe with the in-house scooped russet was never restored. Fridays still sells potato skins, but corporate rebuilt the appetizer around shelf-stable ingredients to keep prep times under a minute, and the version that defined casual dining in 1981 has been off the line for over 30 years. Number 14. McDonald's MCDLT. The MCDLT came in a wide two-chamber styrofoam clamshell that separated the hot beef patty and bottom bun on one side from the cold lettuce, tomato, and top bun on the other. The slogan ran on every commercial from 1984 forward, "Keep the hot side hot and the cool side cool." Jason Alexander danced through the ad campaign before Seinfeld made him famous. The point of the sandwich was the package. The clamshell kept the salad components crisp on the drive home, and the customer assembled the burger at the table. Then the environmental backlash arrived. The styrofoam was non-biodegradable. McDonald's bowed to regulatory pressure across 1989 and 1990, and the chain announced a full foam phase-out in late 1990. The McDLT was discontinued in January 1991 because the sandwich did not work without the package that made it special. McDonald's has never brought back the MCDLT in any form because the concept required the packaging the chain spent 2 decades publicly disowning. Number 13. Horn and Hard Art Automat Sandwiches. The Horn and Hard Art Automat ran a stainless steel wall of small glass doors where you dropped a nickel or a dime in the slot, turned a chrome knob, and pulled out a ham sandwich on rye, a slice of pumpkin pie, or a bowl of macaroni and cheese that had been plated by a worker behind the wall. The 200 East 42nd Street location in Manhattan stayed open through the 1980s as the last operating automat in the country. Lunch crowds from the surrounding office towers kept it busy through the early part of the decade. Then the suburbs pulled away the regular customers, chock-full o' nuts undercut the coffee price on every block, and the dining room developed a reputation as a daytime shelter for the homeless and people with nowhere else to sit. The 42nd Street Automat closed in 1991. No chain has tried to operate the model since because the labor cost of staffing behind a wall of vending doors makes no sense against a fast food counter, and the original chrome and glass fixtures are now in the Smithsonian. Number 12. Roy Rogers Double R Bar Burger and Fixin's Bar. The Double R Bar Burger was a quarter-pound patty on a buttered Kaiser roll with a slice of American and a folded slab of Smithfield ham seared on the flat top, and it landed on the tray bare so you could walk it over to the Fixin's Bar yourself. The Fixin's Bar was the part that families remembered. A horseshoe-shaped counter with stainless wells of crinkle-cut pickles, raw onion slices, hot peppers, ladles of cheese sauce, 2 kinds of mustard, and a rotating soup of the day. You built your own burger and refilled your fries with abandon. The chain peaked at more than 600 locations in the late 1980s under Marriott. In December 1989, Marriott announced it was getting out of family restaurants, and the chain was sold to Amasco for $365 million in 1990. Hardee's converted or sold off more than 500 locations through the 90s, and the Fixin's Bar of the 1980s is gone from every converted building. Number 11. Lum's Ollie Burger and Beer-Steamed Hot Dogs. Lum's started as a single hot dog stand on Miami Beach in 1956, and the quarter-pound dogs were steamed in a kettle of beer, water, caraway seed, onion, and spice that perfumed the dining room the second the kitchen door swung open. The bun came soft, the meat juicy, and the slogan promised a flavor that fast food could not match. The Ollie Burger arrived later, a grilled patty under a special sauce whose recipe Lum's paid Oliver Gleichenhaus $1 million for in 1971, plus a 10-year contract to appear in commercials as the face of the burger. Lum's peaked in the 1970s, and then a Swiss buyer took over in 1978 and ran the chain into Chapter 11 by 1982. The locations vanished from one strip mall after another, and the steam kettle behind the counter went with them. The last Lum's closed in Davie, Florida in 2009. Number 10. Mr. Steak Birthday Sirloin. Mr. Steak ran 278 locations across the country by the late 1970s, and the chain made its name on one promise: a USDA choice sirloin, grilled to order, served with baked potato and a roll for less than the family budget could comfortably spend on a night out. The birthday meal was the hook. Show up on the right day, and the kid got a free steak, a paper cowboy mask, and a fairy tale-themed plate that arrived with a candle in the dinner roll. Founder James Mather opened the first one in Colorado Springs in 1962, and the chain held the middle-class steakhouse slot for 2 decades. The 1980s broke it. Corporate diversified the menu into fish, chicken, and salads. The steak became one option among many, and Mr. Steak filed Chapter 11 in 1987. The last location closed in St. Charles, Missouri in 2009. Number 9. Pioneer Chicken Fish and Chips Meal. Pioneer Chicken started in Echo Park in 1961, and by the early 1980s, the orange and yellow Pioneer sign was on close to 300 storefronts up and down the West Coast. Muhammad Ali shot a commercial for the Pioneer strips in 1977. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar followed in 1981 with a campaign built around the fish and chips meal, 2 fillets of cod under a beer batter shell on a paper-lined tray with fries and a wedge of lemon. The chain put it in every Los Angeles neighborhood where a kid could walk to a Pioneer after school. Then the wheels came off. Founder H.R. Kaufman filed Chapter 11 in 1988 with 270 stores still on the books, and AFC Enterprises bought what was left in 1993 and converted almost every location to Popeyes. 2 Pioneer locations still stand in Boyle Heights and Bell Gardens, and the fish and chips meal disappeared with the rest of the menu. Number 8. Farrell's Zoo Sundae on a Stretcher. The zoo was 30 scoops of ice cream piled with bananas, pineapple, hot fudge, butterscotch, marshmallow, whipped cream, and a parade of small plastic animals stuck around the rim of a trough-sized dish. The kitchen plated it on a wooden stretcher carried by 2 servers in straw boaters and red sleeve garters, and the runner on the dining floor cleared a path with a hand-cranked siren and a brass bell while the player piano cut over to a marching tune. You ordered the zoo for a table of 10, and the whole restaurant turned to watch it go by. Farrell's reached 130 parlors under Marriott in the 1970s. The chain was sold to private investors in 1982. The parlors started closing one market at a time, and by 1990 almost every location was dark. The stretchers, the boaters, and the brass bells all went into storage, and the zoo on a stretcher has been off the menu in any meaningful chain sense for over 30 years. Number 7. Burger Chef Fun Meal with Star Wars Box. The Fun Meal arrived years before McDonald's introduced the Happy Meal, and the box itself was the toy. Each 7-cent cardboard carton folded open along scored lines into a tabletop game with pop-out R2-D2 figures, a TIE fighter that flew across the lunch counter, or a cantina scene that turned the dinner table into a stage. Burger Chef released 7 different Star Wars Fun Meal cartons in the run-up to the Empire Strikes Back theatrical release, and the chain handed them out with a hamburger, fries, and a fountain drink at over 1,000 locations. The end came quickly. The General Foods parent sold Burger Chef to Amasco in 1982 for $44 million, and Hardee's converted most of the locations into Hardee's restaurants over the next 2 years. A handful of independent burger chefs hung on into the 90s. The last one closed in Cookeville, Tennessee in 1996 when the franchise agreement ran out, and the Fun Meal carton with the punch-out Star Wars figures is now a collector's item. Number 6. Wiener Schnitzel Chili Dog with Reggie Jackson. The chili dog at Der Wiener Schnitzel was a grilled hot dog in a steamed bun under a thick ladle of secret recipe chili that ran the spectrum from sweet to spicy, depending on which kitchen built it. The chain had been Der Wiener Schnitzel through the 70s, dropped the Der in 1979, and rebranded around the slogan "World's Largest Hot Dog Chain" in the early 80s. Reggie Jackson shot the National Hot Dog Month commercial in 1984. He was the face of the campaign through the middle of the decade, and the chili dog was the menu item the company built every spot around. Then the company tried to chase burgers. The original hamburger stand and Weldon's Gourmet Hamburgers were launched in 1983 as separate concepts. Both of them flopped, and the company spent most of the late 80s retreating to what it had built in the first place. The Reggie Jackson-era chili dog promotion has not run on national television since 1986, and the grilled dog steamed bun original version was quietly replaced by a softer flat-top model. Number 5. Ground Round Penny a Pound Kids Night. Ground Round opened a wall projector silent movie on the back wall of the dining room every Tuesday and Thursday night, dropped baskets of fresh popcorn on every table, and let kids drop the shells on the floor without a word from the staff. The promotion that filled the parking lot was the Penny a Pound special. The kid got weighed on a stand-up scale at the door and paid 1 cent per pound for dinner. A 40-pound child ate for 40 cents. Bingo the Clown made the rounds with balloons. The Peanuts came later and got swapped for popcorn when the lawsuit started. Howard Johnson's launched the chain in 1969, and Ground Round had grown to 215 restaurants by 1985, when Howard Johnson spun it off to focus on the failing hotel side. The penny a pound model died first. By the early 90s, the lawyers had killed the floor peanuts policy. The scales went into the basement, and Ground Round had become a generic neighborhood pub with no resemblance to the dining room of the early 1980s. Number 4. Chili's Sizzling Fajitas on a Cast Iron Platter. Chili's put fajitas on the national casual dining menu in 1984, and the order arrived from the kitchen with the cast iron platter still spitting oil and the busboy carrying it on a wooden trivet with a folded towel wrapped around the handle. He set it down with a warning never to touch the rim. The skirt steak was marinated overnight in lime, garlic, and beer, then seared over the broiler and laid over a bed of grilled bell pepper and yellow onion. A second plate carried warm flour tortillas in a folded napkin, with side bowls of pico, sour cream, and guacamole that had been mashed in the back 20 minutes earlier. The smoke off the platter carried halfway across the dining room. Norman Brinker had taken Chili's from a single Dallas location to a national chain inside a decade, and the fajitas became the order that defined the table for the rest of the 80s. By the 90s, the cast iron platters were lighter, the marinade was bottled, and the version on the menu today no longer carries that smoke. Number 3. Bennigan's world-famous Monte Cristo. The Bennigan's Monte Cristo stacked sliced ham, turkey, Swiss, and American cheese between 3 slices of bread, dipped the whole thing in egg batter, dropped it into the fryer until the outside turned a deep gold, and finished it at the table with a heavy snow of powdered sugar and a side of raspberry preserves. The first cut released steam, and the contrast of the savory inside against the sweet jam on the plate was the experience the chain built its name on through the 1980s. Sandwiches made up 40% of non-drink sales, and the Monte Cristo led the category. Bennigan's filed Chapter 7 on July 29, 2008, and shuttered all 150 corporate locations on the same day. More than 9,000 employees walked into a locked door before the lunch rush. The fryer-dipped sandwich with the egg batter shell and the side of jam has not been on a national chain menu at that scale since. A few revival franchises sell a version, but the dining room ritual of the 80s is gone. Number 2. Red Lobster Endless Popcorn Shrimp. Red Lobster trademarked the term popcorn shrimp in 1986 after running the product on the menu since 1977, and the endless promotion of the 1980s brought a fresh basket of bite-sized battered shrimp to the table the moment the previous one was emptied. The kitchen dropped the shrimp into a corn flour breading and fried them in batches small enough that the coating stayed crisp from the fryer to the booth. A cocktail sauce, a sleeve of cheddar biscuits, and a coleslaw on the side rounded out the plate. The endless shrimp model was the engine that built the chain through the 80s. The promotion left and came back in revised forms across the next 4 decades, and General Mills sold off Red Lobster in 1995 because the company could not maintain the seafood supply at the price the model required. The original 1980s endless version, with the cornmeal battered popcorn shrimp coming back without a wait, has not been on the chain at that volume since the dollar values stopped lining up. Number 1. Wendy's Super Bar Buffet. Wendy's rolled out the Super Bar in 1988 as a $2.99 lunch buffet inside a fast food dining room, and the bar ran 3 separate stations along one wall. a Mexican section with seasoned ground beef, refried beans, and a self-serve taco line, an Italian section with spaghetti, marinara, garlic bread, and a fettuccine alfredo, and the garden spot, a salad bar with crisp greens and a row of dressings in stainless ladles. You picked up a melamine plate at the start and ate as much as the kitchen could keep stocked. Sales jumped 15% the first year. By 1998, the Super Bar was gone. 3 buffet lines inside a counter-service restaurant turned out to be impossible to keep clean and stocked while the drive-through window kept moving. The labor cost ran the margin into the floor, and Wendy's killed the program nationally. No fast food chain has tried to run a hot and cold buffet at that price point since, because the math the Super Bar required no longer exists in any kitchen. Martin Van Buren loved going to places with good seafood, honoring his Dutch background with a good oyster. Oysters and various other kinds of seafood were common parts of Dutch culture back then, and despite growing up in Kinderhook in New York, he still tried various parts of the cuisine. He had a great love for fine dining and grand tables. Now, on to Geno's Hamburgers. In 1957, NFL star Gino Marchetti launches a burger chain that quickly becomes a mid-Atlantic favorite. Geno's Hamburgers was not just about eating. It was about enjoying a meal that felt a bit like home. With signature burgers and a flair for hearty, home-style cooking, Geno's carved out its niche. By the 60s and 70s, they expanded to over 300 locations, where Geno's became a community staple, bolstered by Marchetti's fame and a knack for engaging local fans. Yet, as the fast food giants grew and diversified their menus, Geno's struggled to maintain its hold, and ultimately, in 1982, the chain was sold to Marriott Corporation. Many of its locations transformed into Roy Rogers. Despite its end, Geno's is warmly remembered for its unique take on fast food and pioneering celebrity-driven marketing in the industry. James Monroe did not really have a favorite restaurant in particular because, like Jefferson, he gained a taste for the finer delicacies of French cooking. Once you get hooked, you get onto it for life, and back in their day, most local places did not specialize in French cooking at all. James Monroe ate the same way during his stay at the White House, too. Founded in 1927 by J. Willard Marriott, Hot Shops began as a humble root beer stand and quickly blossomed into a beloved chain of drive-in restaurants. Known for its family-friendly vibe and diverse menu, including the famous Mighty Mo Burger, Hot Shops became synonymous with quality and innovation. It thrived by adapting to America's love affair with cars, offering curbside meal deliveries that catered perfectly to mid-20th century car culture. During its heyday in the 1960s, Hot Shops was more than a restaurant. It was a dining experience that paved the way for what would eventually become Marriott International. However, as focus shifted toward the hotel industry, the restaurants gradually faded out, with the last Hot Shops closing in 1999. Yet, the legacy of Hot Shops endures, celebrated for pioneering service and hospitality in the dining world, leaving an indelible mark on the restaurant and hospitality industries.
It's good, buddy. They grill the steaks just perfect.
Go over to New Orleans and visit Antoine's sometime the next time you find yourself in the neighborhood. It first ran for business in 1840, but it went through some serious setbacks like hurricanes and pandemics, but it still stays as a great Creole spot in New Orleans. In Maine, people say the Palace Diner is the most tenured spot in the state, although some like to say the Biddeford Restaurant is actually the oldest place to grab a bite. However, we think the Cliff House has the fairest claim to the title since it opened up in 1872, a good century before either of those. In Maryland, you have the Middleton Tavern in Annapolis, which opened in 1750. This place was the best spot back then to get a drink, if references are anything to go by, and it may still have retained its excellent service, which got it that reputation in the first place. Thomas Jefferson did not really jibe with the comforts of the simple life at the corner of a bar, but instead, he found a lot of solace in French cuisine and fine dining. The two go together as well as jam and toast do, so it is no wonder he spent a lot of time in Paris visiting restaurants like La Petite Venise and Café de Paris. Jefferson is also credited with introducing macaroni and cheese to America after discovering it on his travels in Europe. Moving on, let's remember Sambo's, which opened its doors in 1957 in Santa Barbara, California. Founded by Sam Battistone Sr. and Newell Bonnet, Sambo's initially grew quickly, riding the wave of popularity to over 1,100 locations nationwide. Known for its budget-friendly, family-friendly meals, Sambo's catered to a broad audience with a casual dining setup that emphasized both value and convenience. However, the brand name, inspired by a racially insensitive children's book, eventually led to its downfall amidst growing racial sensitivity and public backlash. By the early 80s, amidst mounting controversy and a shifting market, most Sambo's restaurants had closed or rebranded. The original location in Santa Barbara remains, reimagined as a modern cafe that respects its complex past while aiming for inclusivity and change. Sambo's story serves as a poignant lesson on the impact of societal values on branding and the importance of cultural sensitivity in business. Go over to Rhode Island and a local or three will definitely mention the White Horse Tavern, which is the oldest name so far on the list, and probably in the country too. This place opened in, yes, that's right, 1673, and it is a historic landmark for a very good reason. As far as taverns go, South Carolina has its own fair share of ancient ones worth visiting, though not as old as the White Horse. Still, 1788 definitely makes the McCrady's Tavern old enough to beat out all the rest, and it was a very frequented hotspot in the era for socializing. South Dakota has the Legend Steakhouse in the Franklin Hotel, which is the oldest place to get steak in the state, having opened in 1903. It closed briefly when the hotel it was inside turned into a place for residences, but it has since opened and is known for serving public figures and VIPs. James K. Polk was a pretty simple and straightforward president. He didn't spend much of his free time on exploring the cuisine of the country, though when he did eat, it was out in New Orleans where he could find Creole cooking and French delicacies. At the end of the day, though, Polk preferred steak and ham and stuck to a traditional Southern diet. Don't forget about Noggles, which Dick Noggles started in 1970 after splitting from Del Taco. Noggles quickly carved out its niche by blending Mexican and American fast food, appealing to a wide audience with its innovative dual-line kitchen system that sped up service and kept the food fresh. This chain was a hit in Southern California, known for its bold flavors and generous portions, perfectly capturing the fusion of quick service and zesty Mexican flavors. Despite its success, after a hostile takeover, Noggles merged with Del Taco in 1988, leading to the brand's disappearance. However, the spirit of Noggles lives on. Recent revival efforts have seen a few new locations open, reigniting the passion for its unique menu and celebrating its legacy in the fast food industry. North Dakota has the Peacock Alley American Grill and Bar in Bismarck, which has been operating since 1933, making it one of the younger establishments on our list. A lot of the building is still the original design, though, and it gained a rumor for having underground tunnels. If you go over to Ohio and visit the Golden Lamb, which first opened in 1803 as a house of public entertainment, you will have gone to the same place as 12 other U.S. presidents. That's at least a quarter of the entire list of presidents, and besides that, it has a restaurant, a hotel, and a museum. Definitely a lot of public entertainment if you ask us. Oklahoma had the Cattleman's Steakhouse in Oklahoma City, a 1910 lean meat enthusiast spot, which became known for its late hours, which were not common during the 1910s. It was even put into the Steakhouse Hall of Fame in 2024 and is known for its flavor and friendly service alike. In Oregon, you have Huber's, which is one of the finest places to go to in Portland. In 1879, this place first opened with the name of the Bureau Saloon, and it has since changed from a bar to a full-on restaurant. Currently, it has some fantastic roast turkey. Pennsylvania has the Revere Tavern in Paradise, which is actually incredibly ancient. The state would see this historic landmark in 1740 for the first time, and despite closing once in 2022, it has reopened under a new owner. It is known for its thoroughly rustic charm, which attracts families in particular. John Quincy Adams, on the other hand, was not really a fan of eating for enjoyment at all when he was at the White House. In his diary, it is never really mentioned where he liked to eat out or what he enjoyed, but apparently he thought 6 or 5 small crackers and water were a sumptuous dinner. And don't forget about Red Barn, distinctive for its barn-shaped restaurants that created a fun, family-friendly dining experience. Founded in 1961, Red Barn expanded rapidly, introducing unique menu items like the Big Barney and Barnbuster burgers. Their peak years in the late 60s and early 70s saw them introducing a self-service salad bar, enhancing the dining experience by adding a touch of freshness and innovation. However, as the fast food market grew increasingly competitive with chains expanding more aggressively, Red Barn struggled to maintain its footing. By the 1980s, it had mostly vanished from the landscape. Despite its closure, the nostalgic affection for Red Barn's innovative approach and distinctive architectural style endures, reminding us of its unique and memorable contribution to the fast food scene. The legacy of Red Barn continues to inspire the industry, demonstrating the impact of thematic and distinctive designs in enhancing brand identity and customer experience.
In Colorado, you get the Buckhorn Exchange. This one is actually a National Historic Landmark because it was the very first bar that managed to get a license to serve drinks after the Prohibition ended, which was one of the scariest times in American history. Another reason people visit is to see their extensive taxidermy collection of 500-plus animals is no joke, really. We have a new entry for oldest on the list, and the Griswold Inn holds that title by a margin, having opened up in 1776. That makes it exactly 248 years old, but it is still known for the same things today as it was on its opening. Namely, a really cozy environment, fantastic customer service, and comfortable beds and prices. Delaware has Kelly's Logan House in Wilmington, which in 1864 is the oldest haunt in the state as of yet. People like to think that Jessup's Tavern holds that accomplishment, but it did not start being a food place until the 1940s. In that regard, Kelly's has a lot more experience, and it shows, since you always get a very consistent experience there. When James Madison was not busy with the lovely cooking his wife would prepare with the fresh produce of the Montpelier estate, he was reportedly busy at various inns and taverns in Philadelphia. He had no proper favorite that he would swear on over all else, but he liked sampling everything the city's various establishments had to offer whenever he could. Guess he was adventurous?
Next up, Carol's. Originally a part of the Tasty Freeze family in the 1950s, which cleverly pivoted to burgers and rapidly expanded across the northeastern United States. Their signature club burger became a staple, and they diversified the menu to include fried chicken and breakfast items, catering to a variety of tastes and meal times. At their peak in the 1970s, Carol's captured the public's attention with catchy jingles and promotions that really capitalized on the burgeoning television advertising era. However, the increasing competition from fast food giants like McDonald's and Burger King, coupled with operational challenges, pressured Carol's into a significant transformation. In the 1980s, they began converting their locations to Burger King franchises, a move that marked the end of their run as an independent brand. Today, Carol's stands as one of the largest Burger King franchisees, a testament to their ability to adapt and thrive under competitive pressures, illustrating the crucial adaptive strategies needed to survive in the cutthroat fast food industry.
In Arizona, the Prescott Palace Restaurant and Saloon, which opened in 1877, was a hub for eating, drinking, networking, and discussing business deals. A lot of the interior design of the building is still the same as always, and the ceiling even has bullet holes in it. Are they real or just for show? We like to think it being real adds to the allure of the place. In Arkansas, if you went back to 1907 to explore the best breakfast spots or trendiest cafes, you'd find the White House Cafe. Unlike the others on the list, this one has changed so far, and each new owner puts an even fresher spin on the establishment, which now has a sports lounge. It is still known for serving some of the best steaks in the state, though. In California, Tadich Grill is one of the best places to get great value for red meat dishes. It was set up by 3 immigrants in 1849, which makes it the oldest name so far, and was destroyed in the 1906 earthquake. Since then, it has been remade, with all the original designs such as the booths and lunch counter still intact. John Adams was similar to the man in the chair before him, and he loved unwinding down at a tavern in Boston known as Mason's. See, Mason's was a cozy little joint that the president could drink at without any disturbances. Adams was known for his appreciation of simple New England fare, often enjoying a hearty bowl of clam chowder. Let's take a moment for Henry's Hamburgers, started by Bresler's Ice Cream Company in the mid-1950s as a direct competitor to McDonald's. They hit the ground running with killer deals like 10 burgers for $1, catering perfectly to the budget-conscious consumer. At their height in the 1960s, Henry's boasted about 200 outlets. They mastered the art of quick service and cost efficiency, precisely aligning with the burgeoning fast food era in America. However, their minimalist approach eventually backfired as consumer preferences evolved towards more diverse menus and improved dining atmospheres. This shift led to a decline, as they couldn't keep pace with competitors who offered broader menus and better experiences. Today, only a few Henry's locations remain, serving as nostalgic reminders of a simpler time in fast food history. Despite their reduced presence, Henry's contributions to the industry, particularly in terms of pricing strategies and operational efficiency, continue to resonate as important lessons for fast food operations everywhere. In the District of Columbia, the Old Ebbitt Grill, which opened in 1856, is likely the oldest restaurant in the area. It was a boarding home in 1856, but after a lot of moves and a change in the man up top, the grill changed from a boarding home to a place known for serving great grilled food and drinks. In Florida, in Ybor City, the Columbia restaurant is one of the biggest and certainly the oldest restaurants to exist in the state overall. It was first opened in 1905, and the whole thing itself now is a city block wide. It first opened as a saloon, and it would serve drinks and basic food then too. In Georgia, you definitely get catered to if seafood is your vibe. The Plaza Restaurant and Oyster Bar is a 1916 classic in terms of seafood, where you can also get desserts on the side like homemade pie. It has a dining room and a gathering space for locals, making it a great spot to stop and refresh. In Hawaii, you have the Manago Hotel, which started in 1917 and was a small pit stop for travelers. There, they could buy meals like bread, toast, coffee, or even udon. It has since moved to Captain Cook in Hawaii, and it now serves really nice fried pork chops, which were enough to get it an America's Classics Award. Despite having a French cook and a basement filled with French wine, Andrew Jackson was always found visiting the many places in Nashville where you could catch a good bite to eat. From things like chicken sandwiches to steaks, he was often at any tavern or inn with good grub. Jackson's fiery personality matched his love for hearty, simple meals, and he often ordered multiple steaks in one sitting.
All right, let's chat about Lum's, a place that really made its mark with something you might not expect in a fast food joint: beer-steamed hot dogs. Started by brothers Stewart and Clifford Perlman in 1956 down in Miami Beach, Lum's was more than just a hot dog stand. It was a phenomenon. They expanded like wildfire during the late 60s and early 70s, at one point boasting over 400 outlets across the country. Their casual, pub-like atmosphere made Lum's the go-to spot for a fun family meal or a night out with friends. But like many good things, Lum's era of fast expansion came to an end. By the late 70s, the chain faced financial difficulties, and the Perlman brothers sold it off. Most locations shut down by the mid-1980s. Though Lum's as a brand has largely vanished, a few spots still keep the nostalgia alive, reminding us of the unique flair Lum's brought to the fast food scene with its distinctive beer-steamed offerings.
Going over to Massachusetts, we have the Union Oyster House, which was one of the few places with a semicircular oyster bar in 1826. This was one of the favorite go-to spots of Julia Child, too, and it was where the toothpick was used for the first time. Real rich history, right?
If you count restaurant to mean even a bar that serves some dry fruit on the side, then the New Hudson Inn in Michigan is probably the oldest there. That place first opened in 1831, but it was not anywhere you could get a proper meal. If that's your definition, you would look at the Sleater's Family Tavern, which had opened in 1882. Minnesota has the Hubbell House, which almost caved from the pressure of the pandemic. It has been going since 1854. The Hubbell House started as a hotel that expanded into an even bigger building, and ever since then it has been relatively steady, pandemic excluded. Mississippi, on the other hand, has the Wademan's in Meridian, which is an 1870 spot that first got a rep for incredible comfort food. Currently, it is known for its black bottom pie, but it has built a name for itself in many spots throughout the state as it moved around plenty. Zachary Taylor was more or less cut from the same cloth, direct in his leadership and even more blunt and plain with his food. Wherever he went, he had the simple tastes of a boy raised in the southern countryside. He typically had cornbread at whichever tavern he went to and loved steakhouses that were popular. White Tower, the early bird in fast food, started back in 1926, taking cues from White Castle's playbook. White Tower was all about small, tasty burgers that were easy on the wallet, perfect during the Great Depression. Their striking white, tower-like buildings became iconic in urban centers across the Northeast and Midwest. But post-World War II, the landscape shifted with new competitors introducing modern fast food concepts. By the 1960s, White Tower was in decline, struggling against rivals and legal battles with White Castle. The brand couldn't innovate fast enough, leading to most locations closing or transforming by the late 20th century. Today, White Tower is a nostalgic whisper of early fast food history, remembered for its distinctive architecture and its role in popularizing quick, affordable burgers. You think Tennessee in your mind goes to all the spicy goodness you can find in Nashville, and Varallo's has been adding to that reputation for the state since 1907. All right, it has gone through a lot of moves, so it is not exactly the exact same, but who can say they are after a good 100 years? The restaurant was and still is known for its hearty chili though, and you have to grab a bowl if you are ever in the area. The Stagecoach Inn in Texas is the oldest food place, having opened in 1860 originally, and despite some name changes and a reopening, it is standing strong as one of the best spots in Texas to visit. Utah has the Snappy service, which is the oldest opening, having first started as a lunch counter in Salt Lake City during 1902. But the first places that were restaurants from the get-go are the Bluebird, Lamb's, and the Idle Isle, which opened in 1914, 1919, and 1923. As far as names and USPs go, this one is pretty on the nose, but Ye Old Tavern in Vermont is probably the best and most widely regarded spot in the state. Having opened in 1790, it closed down for a while for losing its liquor license, but has since returned. Virginia has the Red Fox Inn and Tavern, which opened in 1728 and has gone through several name changes. Currently, it is known for having a lot to offer with burgers to full-on roasts and desserts as well. So when you go as far back as the first American president, George Washington, you go to a time where restaurants in the modern sense were not really that popular. What Sir Washington did have were taverns and inns, and one of his favorites was the City Tavern in Philadelphia. He was seen dining there many times, as well as the Fraunces Tavern in New York City. Dive into Sandy's, the underdog from Peoria, Illinois, that started in 1956. Sandy's was a Midwest gem that went toe-to-toe with McDonald's thanks to its founders, who were ex-McDonald's franchisees. They brought something special to the table, a Scottish-themed vibe, and a focus on charbroiled burgers that really set them apart. Throughout the 1960s, Sandy's expanded to over 100 locations, embracing regional flavors and building a beloved brand in the Midwest. However, the 1970s brought tough challenges. Increased competition and higher costs pushed Sandy's to the brink. In a bid to survive, many locations converted to Hardee's in the late 70s. Today, Sandy's lives on in memories and reunions, celebrating its legacy in themed marketing and local flavor adaptations. Millard Fillmore liked anywhere with good New England cuisine,
and one of the places that had a good knack for it was the Willard Hotel. That place opened up during the time he was president, and it became a hub for influential people to eat and rub shoulders at. In particular, he loved places with a goof-clear soup. Biff Burger, started in 1956 by Bruce Brain in Clearwater, Florida, Biff Burger was known for its unique cooking method, the roto-broiled process. This technique, where burgers were cooked by flames as they passed through a revolving drum, set Biff Burger apart, making its food a tantalizing choice in the fast food market. The chain enjoyed popularity in the southeastern U.S., becoming a go-to spot for affordable, tasty fast food. Despite its initial success, Biff Burger couldn't withstand the competition from larger chains in the 70s and began to decline. Today, Biff Burger is mostly a memory, with just a few signs and standalone locations remaining as relics of its once thriving operation. Its innovative approach to burger preparation remains a memorable part of fast food history, showcasing how technology can shape food service and customer experiences. The Willard Hotel is one of the few places to host two presidents, and Ulysses S. Grant is the second person who enjoyed his stays at the hotel. Perhaps his favorite restaurant would be Delmonico's. It was a New York place that got pretty famous for its simple fare, which Grant was an avid fan of. Grant's love for Delmonico's steaks was so well known that the restaurant even named a steak after him, the Grant Steak, which was served with a side of fried oysters. Let's dive into Chi-Chi's, a vibrant spot that opened its doors in 1975, founded by restaurateur Marno McDermott and former Green Bay Packers player Max McGee. Chi-Chi's brought the festive flair of Mexican fiestas right to the dining table, differentiating itself with a lively atmosphere paired with authentic-tasting Mexican dishes. Famous for its nachos, sizzling fajitas, and potent margaritas, Chi-Chi's quickly became a beloved dining destination, spreading joy with over 200 locations nationwide by the 1980s. Families loved it for its festive vibe and affordable dining options. However, the brand faced a drastic downturn in the late 1990s, culminating in a severe hepatitis A outbreak in 2003 that irreversibly damaged its reputation. The outbreak led to numerous lawsuits and a decline in customer trust, forcing Chi-Chi's to close all of its American locations by 2004. While Chi-Chi's still operates in some European countries, it remains a lesson on the critical importance of maintaining food safety standards. When James Buchanan, as not busy chewing down cabbage at the White House, he often enjoyed sauerkraut in German restaurants. And when even that bored him, he visited Pennsylvania for its famous Dutch food, though there are little references to any particular names. Buchanan was known for his bachelor lifestyle, and as the only unmarried president, he often relied on the hospitality of local inns and restaurants for his meals, giving him the title of a true foodie of his time. Next up is Kenny Rogers Roasters, established in 1991 by country music star Kenny Rogers and former KFC CEO John Y. Brown Jr. The chain broke the mold in the fast food industry by focusing on healthy, wood-fired rotisserie chicken, a fresher alternative to the fried offerings that dominated the market. Kenny Rogers Roasters enjoyed a warm reception, expanding quickly both in the U.S. and internationally, especially in Asia, where it resonated well with local tastes. Despite its promising start, the brand struggled to maintain momentum in the U.S. due to stiff competition and a saturated market, eventually being acquired by Nathan's Famous in 1998. However, in Southeast Asia, Kenny Rogers Roasters found a lasting audience, where it continues to thrive, highlighting the potential for American fast food brands to flourish overseas by adapting to local preferences. Franklin Pierce was also a fan of New England cuisine, especially things like fried clam. He loved visiting coastal areas like Maine and Rhode Island. Most of the presidents of the early era of the American presidency did not have many favorite places they would go to, because the restaurant industry was not half as developed. They still had areas where they frequented to get their preferences met. Remember All American Burger? Established in the early 1960s in Los Angeles, This chain catered to Southern California's car culture with its drive-through service and made-to-order burgers using fresh, high-quality ingredients. It carved out a niche by offering a more personalized and upscale fast food experience, attracting a loyal following who appreciated its focus on quality. At its peak in the 1970s and 1980s, All-American Burger became a symbol of the classic California burger scene. However, as larger chains began to dominate with speedier service and lower prices, All-American Burger faced mounting challenges and began a slow decline. By the late 1990s, most locations had closed. Today, the brand lives on in the memories of its former patrons, serving as a nostalgic reminder of a time when quality and customization set the standard in fast food.
Abraham Lincoln was just like that, and he found a place to express that through Ford's Theater, which hosted performances of theater and also had meals for the visitors. Another place that he was known to visit was the Café de la Régence, which was known to be visited by high-ranking politicians at the time. Lincoln, known for his love of simple fare, once joked that a plate of plain apples and a glass of milk could keep him perfectly content at any gathering.
Let's explore Zantigo, which kicked off in 1969 as a fresh take on fast Mexican food. Zantigo quickly won over fans with its chilitos, chili cheese burritos, tacos, and unique hot sauces. It carved out a distinctive niche in the Midwest, particularly in Minnesota, where it became a staple for fast Mexican food. Zantigo's unique selling proposition was its blend of authentic flavors served up fast, a hit among those craving quick, tasty Mexican fare. Despite its regional popularity, Zantigo struggled to expand beyond its core areas and was eventually bought out by Taco Bell in 1986. This acquisition marked the end of Zantigo as a standalone brand, with most locations converted to Taco Bell outlets. However, the legacy of Zantigo's bold flavors and unique dishes influenced Taco Bell's menu, and recent revival efforts have seen new Zantigo locations opening, aiming to recapture the original's charm and satisfy nostalgic cravings.
Andrew Johnson was a simpler man, though, and he liked to relax with a good prime ribeye from anywhere in the Midwest. He often grew up eating cuts of beef of all kinds, so he definitely knew his way around the grill in more ways than one. You will find that he is not the only president to share a passionate love for steak either.
Let's take a stroll down memory lane to 1967 when Minnie Pearl's Chicken first hit the scene, all decked out in the sparkle of country legend Minnie Pearl herself. The chain really played up Pearl's Southern charm and wit, trying to give KFC a run for its money, with a menu packed with Southern-style recipes perfect for family dinners. At its height, Minnie Pearl's had spots sprinkled all across the country, becoming a beloved stop in both rural areas and the South. But as with many tales of rapid expansion, they hit some snags, big ones with quality control and keeping the books straight, leading to a patchy experience for customers. These bumps, along with fierce competition, saw the brand dwindling by the late 70s. Today, Minnie Pearl's Chicken is just a ghost of the past, a memory for those who got to taste its home-style cooking. It's a real lesson in how crucial consistent quality and strong management are in the cutthroat world of fast food.
If a single one of these tables sounds like a meal you remember, the chains that built them taught a whole country how to eat out on a Friday paycheck. Wendy's took the buffet out of the dining room. Bennigan's locked the door on the fryer-dipped sandwich the same July afternoon it shut the lights off. Chili's lightened the cast iron until the smoke went with it. The brass rail salad bar sits in a warehouse somewhere. The fun meal cartons are behind museum glass, and the orange roof is paint on a forgotten rest stop. Tell us in the comments which one your family ordered the most. The plates are gone. The hunger that filled them is still here.